Good day, it's Jono Brake here from The Forge Leader, and I'm here for another round of Monday Myth Check. And what we're looking at today is the disc edition of Monday Myth Check, where we're talking about myth checks and checking myths around the disc assessment, personality, behavior, all those sorts of things. We're going to start with a real obvious one today, and that is that people don't change. For example, if you have a disc style, you're a DI or an ID or an SC or whatever, then that's fixed and it never changes. Now, the reality is that you do have natural tendencies, you do have strengths and weaknesses, and there are things that you've developed over time that can play into your strengths, but also can become a weakness, of course. There is an element of, if you're a dominant, it's pretty hard to become a stabilizer or vice versa. But you maybe become better at flexing it, and maybe then becomes more of a habit. One of the problems is that if we think that our disc style is fixed, then what happens is that we start to do, for example, let's look at the first one that could happen, is that we start to confuse personality, or we even call it personality, which is incorrect, behavioral styles, temperament, whatever you want to call it. We start to confuse that with performance. Okay, and we start to judge people by the way they perform because of their behavioral style, right? And so we think that can never change, so they can't do this. Now, yeah, I want someone more conscientious handling the numbers or the accuracies or the legalities or whatever it might be. But at the end of the day, that doesn't mean that they can't do other things, and vice versa. That means me as an influencer can't learn some of that conscientious stuff as well. The second one is that team members feel boxed in or labeled. A lot of the resistance I have to disc, well, when I'm not just my label. We've talked about that in other videos. It's very important to understand that you are not a label. I talk about it in a previous video where we said your disc profile is not your identity. Okay. It's also not just a label. Oh, you're a D. That's what you do. You're an S. That's just how S's behave. I can't help it. And so there's two areas where this becomes a problem. One is we obviously, we said before, we box people in. The second one is we start to behave out of emotional immaturity. We say, that's just who I am. That's just the way I behave. So bad luck. Okay. Now, obviously, if we don't believe that profile could change, then that's all that person's ever going to be. And I don't think that's a really good thing. The third thing is that if you apply this across a team, then your team starts to lose its adaptability, its ability to flex, its ability to welcome people in. It's funny, I'm going to pick on the S's here because they're the nicest of the group, but it's interesting because I saw this amongst a team of S's, and they brought in a fourth S into this team. And she really struggled because the other S's had already formed a bond. They already clicked together. And even though they're the nicest out of the group, they do tend to resist change and struggle with change quite a bit. And so this person was really struggling, just couldn't fit in, just couldn't connect. And kind of the advice was, look, this is going to take time, but also then to the other people in the team, hey, you got to realize this is the natural behavior for you. But there's three things there in terms of just thinking about, is your disc style is fixed, it's just who I am, people don't change. Okay, people do change, by the way. People could take on whole different profiles, usually not overnight, but they can do over time. So what's a good action for you? If you've taken any of these assessments, any leadership tests, I want you to understand that they are a snapshot in time, okay? They really are. That doesn't mean that they don't hold weight. It doesn't mean that they don't feel accurate, all those sorts of things, but they are a snapshot in time. And so I've seen some people where we've seen some different fringe behaviors perhaps, or their secondary behavior has played more into the assessment than it normally would, all those sorts of things. And so let's just understand that first. Its primary role is to give us a language as a team, as individuals, to be able to connect and to be able to serve each other well as a team, for leaders to be able to lead well, and we call this idea flex your style. So to learn other styles and to learn that you can behave a different way. You can bring more empathy or less empathy depending on which side of the spectrum you're coming from. You can bring more conscientious or less conscientious. You can be more of an influencer. You can bring more color, and you can bring less of it too. So the idea is that all of these, I didn't leave the D's out deliberately. They can bring a lot less as well, and a lot more, some of them. What are the things we need to flex in? And then what are the things that we need to do well that we naturally do well anyway? So if we just say these things are fixed, we're not going to do that. So there it is, Monday Myth Check. People never change. Your disc style is fixed. I'm checking that as a myth, and I know that we think it's a reality. I'm Jono Brake. As always, enjoy the journey. Well, g'day, it's Jono Brake here today, and I want to quickly talk to you about self-awareness in leadership and a DISC program that I'm launching. So one of the areas that I'm really well trained in, worked in for 15 to 20 years, is this assessment tool called DISC. And it basically helps you understand how people behave, how they interact with each other, how they connect, how they disconnect as well, how they can handle conflict, how they coach, how they guide, all these different things. But at the end of the day, it comes from this really important premise that the most important thing in a great leader is an understanding of their own space, their own disposition, their self-awareness. So this DISC workshop is designed to be a simple multi-video process where you can unpack DISC and you can look at it in terms of your own space. You'll do an assessment, so you'll know what your assessment is, and then you go through the videos and you can then book a 15 to 20 minute session with me at the end if you want to. But then also think about, okay, how does this apply to my team? And should we be doing this into your team? But this is where we're at today. I want you to think about coming and doing this DISC workshop with me. It's all online, so you can do it at your own pace, and then we can chat at the end. Hope you're enjoying the journey. I'm looking forward to seeing you on my DISC workshop.